Hi, all. Happy Wine Wednesday.
Happy
Hey,
Wine
Jenny.
Wednesday. How are you, Mish?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Good, good. As you guys can see, we have a special guest today, Mr. Eric Negron. We are thrilled to have you.
Hello, ladies, and everybody that is watching. Excited to be here with you guys.
Do you realize that you were the inaugural man on the Empowered Women podcast?
You are.
Uh-oh, I think we've got a little bit of a delay. That's all right. Well, we are excited to have Eric today. We are going to be diving into a really important topic that I think is pertinent for just about everybody, regardless of where you're at in your phase of life. We're going to be chatting with Eric, who is a master of negotiating a higher salary. I can attest from personal experience, and he just really is a wealth of knowledge. So we're super excited to introduce you guys to him and to have him delve into that. And we'll get into a little bit more about who he is and what makes him tick and all of those things a little bit later. But without further ado, we have to chat about the wine because we would be remiss if we didn't do that. You guys, please don't judge me because although I have started to study wine and I love it and it's a hobby of mine, I have not started to study French. So I'm likely to butcher anything in the French language with regard to how you talk about wine. So the specific wine that we're drinking today is called Closerie de Pelon. It's Blanc. It is a white Bordeaux, which before I started studying about wine, I didn't really know that there was white Bordeaux. I thought there was just Bordeaux, which is a red varietal. They're usually really big. They're of the noble grape variety. At the time I wasn't really into big red wines, and I still kind of am not. So didn't really go down that road. But when I found out that there was a white Bordeaux, I was like, oh, I must learn more about this. And white Bordeaux is really just a fancier Sauvignon Blanc. It's the same grape. So it's kind of similar to like a Sancerre, but it's just in a different terroir. And I find that white Bordeaux's or Sauvignon Blancs that are from this region are going to be a little bit richer, but still have those like zippy characteristics that are common for a Sauvignon Blanc. It's more elegant than what you would get from like a New World or even like New Zealand. This one is aged in stainless steel with a little bit of malolactic fermentation, which means that it's going to be really zippy, but have a tiny bit of body on the back end. So it's kind of it's definitely a good summer white wine, but it's also one that as it starts to get a little bit cooler, hopefully by you, it would still be a good wine to drink. This one, I get a lot of like preserved lemon, and it's got a little bit of minerality and salt on it as well. So definitely a crowd pleaser, and I think most people would enjoy it. But anyways, I know we've been on a lot of Sauvignon Blanc recently and doing different varietals of it. I feel like that's what most people tell me they like. So I'm trying to show them that there's other arenas to go into outside of just straight up New World Sauvignon Blanc. So hopefully you guys are enjoying this pick, and you guys should definitely let us know your thoughts. I know Mish finally got it, so I'm very excited for her.
It is so good. That is one thing, actually. So Jenny has been picking these great wines, and for some reason, I cannot find them in New York City. But I actually found this week's, and it's amazing. So thank you.
Eric has no excuse because he's in our backyard. So Michelle, we will let you get away with it, but Eric definitely has no excuse, and I'm glad that he is partaking in the wine pick today.
Yeah. Actually, this is actually a funny story, but today when I walked in to get the wine for this afternoon, the store that actually I went to last week asked me if they had last week's pick. Must have gotten in last week's pick because I asked.
Did you buy it?
I did.
I love it. We can try it in retrospect, you guys. It's all fine. It's all fine. Okay, well, we're going to go into Eric. We have a tradition where we do a rose and a thorn. So basically the highlight of our week and the pitfall of our week from the prior week before. So would love for you to start us off and let us know about what the highlight of your week was last week and then the crappiest part of your week.
I think he might be frozen.
That's okay. We'll have Mish, you can start us off while he's figuring that out.
Okay. So let's see. So my rose of this week, actually I have two. So first, most importantly, is the US Open is back in New York. And yesterday was the first day of, it's called Fan Access Week. And all week is actually free for fans to go in and like explore the grounds and actually get to watch like practice rounds and qualifying matches. So it was really fun. It was actually my first time there, and which is crazy, like being a New Yorker. And it's funny because I've had a lot of people visiting from out of town recently, and I've been taking them to do like all different sorts of things like that, typically if you're visiting New York, you want to do. And I've been finding out that I actually haven't done most of them. So it's very different being a tourist in New York City. But the US Open was so much fun. And I'm so glad that I got a chance to go and actually became obsessed with. She's actually still in college and she goes to UNC. Her name's Fiona Crawley. And I think she's a sophomore or junior in UNC. And she was amazing. And just kind of thinking, like, it got me thinking how, like, someone so young, you're playing in the US Open, during like a qualifying match, and how much discipline that must take, especially being in college. Like,
oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah, like all our friends are out, like, just doing typical college things, getting ready to go back. Like she's playing in the US Open, which I thought.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Did you hyperfixate on her for like the next several months? Because that's what I tend to do when I find someone to be obsessed with.
That's what I'm doing. Actually, I Googled everything about her yesterday, and then today I'm like watching to see when her next match is. It's actually tomorrow, so I'm going to see if I could actually go. And,
you should.
She was so good.
Totally sneak out.
Yeah, she was so good. So, yeah, it's got my new kind of hyperfixation to watch over the next few weeks.
Love it.
And then my I guess it's technically rose and thorn. So I actually went to Maryland this weekend to visit my family, and it was a lot of fun. We played a lot of pickleball, and it's so nice being with them. I only get to see them every few months, so I miss them when I'm not with them. But going home, the traffic was horrible. So my thorn of the week is traffic. Just sitting in 5 or 6 hours worth of traffic driving home, it just has you thinking how you could be using this time more wisely, especially when you're by yourself driving.
Thank God for podcasts, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I listened to 2 or 3 of them.
So, and I'm just going to encourage everybody who's listening right now, if you guys want to be interactive and pressure cook Michelle into doing a podcast on how to play pickleball, just saying.
You do a tutorial.
It's like grown up enlarged ping pong.
I'm here for it. I want a how to. I want to know.
Yeah. When I come down to Texas, which hopefully you guys will be getting an live stream discussion in September, I could teach you guys how to play pickleball. We'll go out and play.
Amazing. Well, It looks like we've got Eric back. So let me introduce you guys to my good friend, and I'm going to have him take it away with the highlight of his week and the pitfall of his week from last week.
Yeah, let's talk about the rose first, which was, thank God, I've got, some of you may not know, I've got 5 small children that were all trapped in a home with me this summer for summer vacation. So my rose of the week last week was that everybody's back in school, and it's not playing a game of Survivor with 5 people eating up all the snacks in my house, etc. So I'm grateful for all the kids to be back and to have a quiet house during the day. My thorn of the week, as I have heard Jenny proclaim many a times, we are still dealing with a heat wave here in Texas. And good Lord, is it hot. It hasn't been this hot in 12 years. And I mean, when your AC is running all day long and it's just nonstop, it just makes you kind of cuckoo. So my future rose is that one day I'll say that I have a house in Colorado or somewhere cooler during these hotter months.
Amen to that. So basically for Eric, we're waiting for pumpkin spice latte season over here. And I know people say that it's boring to talk about the weather, but when it's like unprecedented as it has been in Austin and just Texas generally, it literally is debilitating. So heard. Okay, before we let the quote queen take it away, I will jump into my rose and thorn from last week. So last week I did something awesome that I highly recommend everybody doing if you're given the opportunity, which was I did a staycation. I know a lot of people have mixed emotions about it because if you have a place to live in your own town, it's like, why would you spend money to stay somewhere else? But one of the things that I've always struggled with regard to vacation is like when you're going somewhere for like 4 or 5 days, maybe even a week, if you're flying and you're getting there, there's always like a delay of you actually like getting into the vacation and relaxing. And usually it takes me like a day to a day and a half to fully like actually relax. And then by the time you get that feeling, you have maybe like a day left and then you're doing the same thing of like, oh my God, I got to get back and I got to do all the things. I love a staycation because this last week, like literally, I think the hotel was like 15 or 10 minutes away from my house. Beautiful boutique hotel. Had all the boutique feel, pool, which is like the only thing you can do in this weather. And I checked in and literally like 15 minutes later, I was sitting on a lawn chair reading a book, drinking a margarita. And I was like instantly in my Zen mode. And the cool thing was I used this really awesome app called Hotel Tonight, which basically is a last minute booking device where you can get a really good deal because the hotel might have more vacancy than they know what to do with. So like I was just like constantly refreshing it like the day before, day of, and I was able to snag like a 4 to 5 star hotel for like $150 a night. So highly recommend you do that. They had a really amazing bar and restaurant there. My husband and I just like didn't even use our cars. We just kind of like walked around and did all the things and just chilled out and read. So that was really fun. And my thorn for the week, in deviation from the heat stroke, is that tax season is upon us. And I know that you guys know that I'm in the tax line of work. So a lot of my clients are ramping up to get ready for the 9/15 filing deadline. So this month is really like, we're gunning right now. So as much as I'm grateful for the opportunity to have work, it's very stressful. So excited for that to be behind me.
From one heat wave to another, it went from heating up outside to heating up professionally.
I'm telling you, it's nonstop, y'all. We always just got to get used to the heat. If you can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen.
I like that. I like that tip about Hotel Tonight app. That's I think that's pretty phenomenal.
I'm telling you guys, if you're trying to get your financial future in place and you're trying to justify a 5-star hotel experience to your husband, this is how you do it.
Amen. Sell it.
Oh my goodness. They should pay me a commission. All right, Michelle, I'm going to turn it over to you for our weekly dose of being the quote queen.
Yes. So it is time for our quote of the week. And I figured I'd tie it in with this week's theme, like about, negotiating a higher salary, which also ties into knowing your self-worth. So our quote this week is, self-worth comes from one thing, thinking that you are worthy. And that was by Wayne Dyer, who is an author. He also did some podcasts on self-development. And I think this is, really important when it comes to talking about negotiating a higher salary. A lot of the times, we don't feel that we are worthy of it. And that's the first step, to know that you are worthy of it. So.
Absolutely.
Amen.
And I feel, and I feel like we'll get into that a little bit later, specific to, obviously everyone has that experience with regard to their self-worth, but I think women specifically are a little bit more isolated by that experience. So that's something that you just have to be more cognizant of. Super excited to dive into that with not only Michelle, but our awesome guest, Eric.
Yes.
Amen.
Yes. So, Eric, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what excites you professionally?
Well, Michelle and Jenny, thanks for having me. Everybody knows that I'm easily excitable. So I think about what excites me. So a long time ago, when I was going to college, I was studying to be an exercise physiology major because I was a meathead and I liked working out all the time and I liked encouraging encouraging my friends. And I just had this knack for helping people become more. And I thought I was going to go down that path professionally, but it didn't work out for me. I ended up failing out of organic chemistry, and I still had this knack inside of me that I wanted to encourage and uplift people, but I didn't know what the heck I was going to do with it. So somehow I professionally manifested. It only took me 17 years to figure it out. I'm a little bit slower than most. and professionally, what I do is I help run Forefront, which is a wealth management firm with my amazing partners. Uh, we do investment management, we do insurance, we do tax. We have a divorce mediation company, an exit planning business, a technology consulting company. I think my mother wondered when I was a kid what the heck I was going to do with all of these hyperactivity. And I just decided to be a serial entrepreneur and collaborator. And what gets me excited professionally is helping other people become more. Whether it's, I've always had this philosophy in life, which was I wanted to leave everybody better off than I found them, whether it was a conversation, a phone call, whether you came to work with me, whether we worked together. I always wanted people to be better off than I found them, and every interaction was to try to add value. So my life today is pretty much a culmination of getting to do that every single day. It has its up and down, but it's truly fulfilling.
That's amazing. And then one thing that I really want to impress upon you guys, when it comes to the topic that we're covering today with regard to mastering the art of negotiating a higher salary, when that topic came to our minds, Eric was literally our first thought for a lot of the reasons that he just shared with you, with regard to the fact that he is driven by taking people and helping them maximize and see their potential. And I want to get in a little bit more to what that means in terms of what his perspective is on that, surrounding that, and then also on self-worth and getting paid properly and all of that. But I wanted to give you guys a little bit of an anecdote about Eric that I've had with him personally. I've known Eric for years. He's a really good friend of mine. He's a mentor. When I first started out in my career, I know we've talked a lot on this podcast about transitioning from being an employee into becoming an entrepreneur and what that looks like, if that's a desire for you, and how to walk that out. And when I was first out of law school, I was working at a firm where I was significantly underpaid. And I remember realizing that very quickly, and then wanting to figure out a way to reverse that and to put myself in a position of power so that I could continue to build upon it. And I grabbed coffee with Eric. Oh my God, I was like a baby lawyer at the time. I was very, very young, maybe a year or two into my career. And I remember sitting down with him, and I think I was just like, I didn't have the people skills back then that I do now. And I think I just dove right into, I want to make more money. How do I do that? What's your insight on that? And I remember, I gave him my stats. I told him where I was. I told him where I wanted to be. And I remember an instant shift that happened in my brain from talking to him, which was to have more of an abundance mentality around money. He has a very oh, that's it sort of attitude. We can work with that. We can double that. We can triple that. It's out there for you to make. And through several conversations with him, I was able to double my salary in less than 4 to 5 months. So he gave me the tools to not only have a better mindset about money, but to actually have the conversations. And so I wanted to be able to share that with you guys because there's so much insight. And kind of with that, Eric, can you walk us through a little bit about what your perspective is on getting paid properly, how you see self-worth, and kind of how all that ties in together?
Thank you, Jenny, for that amazing introduction. Definitely very humbling. What I would say is that, if you're out there listening, I'm no smarter than you. I tell people, just to kind of give you some context, I never figured out how to color within the lines, and I repeated kindergarten twice. So that will give you some context of my IQ. So what I share with you today are just going to be practical insights about what you can do to see yourself differently so that the world sees you differently. Because your perception of yourself ends up being the perception that other people have and how you carry yourself. So when we talk about worth, I'm going to give you guys a book recommendation. It should be required reading. There's a book called Think and Grow Rich. And Think and Grow Rich was probably the second or third personal development book I ever read. And inside of Think and Grow Rich, there was a poem. And at the time that I read this poem, I was making $7 an hour, working a retail job, and I was hungry and I wanted more for myself and for my life. And here's what the poem said. And I'm going to read this here. We're going to go a little bit off script, off the normal deal. The poem says, I bargained with life for a penny, and life would pay no more. However, I begged at an evening when I counted my scanty store. Life is a just employer. He gives you what you ask, but once you have set the wages, why you must bear the task. I work for a menial's hire, only to learn dismayed that any wage I would have asked of life, life would have willingly paid. And really what that means is you have to know the worth that you bring to the table. And when you're negotiating with yourself. You need to decide what is it that you want for yourself and who are you willing to become to be a person worthy of being paid that, right? What do I want and who am I willing to become? And what happens is in our life is most people have, everybody has wanting. You know, I want to be healthy. I want to have more money. I want to have abundance. I want to have a better attitude. I want to have a better relationship. Well, wanting is only one part of the factor. There is an act that you have to become. And becoming starts in your brain, and then it shows up in your mindsets, and it shows up in your conversations, and it shows up with how you carry yourself, and it shows up with how you behave, what ultimately helps you get what you want and helps you realize your full true worth.
Okay, I have to pause here to ask you a question because it's funny. We did a podcast a couple of weeks ago and talked about books that were essential to us in our growth journey, and Think and Grow Rich was one of them.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I really admire about you, and that a lot of people don't do, myself included, when I starting on my professional development journey, was there's reading books, and then there's reading books where you're not actually like acting upon the knowledge and you're just kind of like dumping it into your brain and it's not being activated. It's not activated knowledge. And I think a lot of times when people, I'm just going to speak on behalf of myself, and I think a lot of women specifically can relate to this. When they read something, they're like, okay, that's a nice concept, but they're still battling with scarcity mentality. So I wonder if you could share with everybody maybe some tips or tactics that have been helpful for you to essentially walk out and internalize what you're reading and kind of like get rid of the scarcity mentality that you have whenever you read something and it feels audacious and big and insurmountable.
So the first thing I would share with everybody, as you're reading, number one, you should have a daily reading habit and ritual. Okay. I like what I refer to as the bookend strategy. Anybody that tells me I'm too busy, I can't read, you are lying to yourself straight up. Everybody can practice the bookend strategy. And here's what it is. You read 5 pages in the morning of a book, and you read 5 pages of a book before you go to bed on something that is going to help your mind, your body, your spirit, your sense of self-worth, professionally, etc. If you read 10 pages of any book, you will get to 20 to 40 books a year, depending on how thick they are. And imagine how your life might change. Here's the reality, right? And you talked about this scarcity mindset that's going through, which unfortunately, you know, women tend to suffer from more than their male counterparts. There's this feeling of not being enough, or not being worthy, etc., right? And a lot of societal pressures that are put on women, unjustly so. You have to combat that. And so what I mean by that is that if you know you're starting with the base of scarcity, you have to overflow your mind, your body, and your spirit with positivity. And what does that look like? That's moving your body, that's getting good sleep. And honestly, the most important thing is, how do you talk to yourself throughout the day? What are the things that you're telling yourself in your head? Right? Are you telling yourself I'm not enough? Or, when I'm talking, I don't sound right? Or, I don't have this skill, or somebody else is better than me, or they're better presented. So you've really got to change your whole narrative, and you've got to sit down and you've got to write down some empowering mantras for yourself. Give yourself a reputation to live up to. Okay. And this is super simple. It doesn't require anything fancy. You could do this. You could pull out your iPhone, because we don't really support Android users here. Sorry, people who are listening.
Get out of the chat green, people.
No chat green here. Okay. We block it. Okay. For those of you that listen, pull out your iPhone and write a note to yourself, and then set a reminder on your phone that it reminds you every morning and every night, before you go, right when you wake up, right when you go to bed, to read these empowering scriptures. Could be things like, I am worthy. I am amazing at my job. I help people. Money comes to me easily and effortlessly and in large quantities. I deliver more value than people pay me for. Everywhere I go, I uplift people. When I communicate, I touch people's hearts. When I communicate, I connect. Success is attracted to me. These are the sort of conversations that we all have the ability to start telling ourselves, so that we can reprogram our wiring in our brain and how we see ourselves. And if you need additional help, I would highly, highly, highly encourage my favorite strategy, which I refer to as the post-it note strategy. Okay, which is whatever major goal you want for yourself in your life, take post-it notes and put them all over your house, put them on the refrigerator, put them on the coffee maker, put them by your bed, put them on the TV, put it by where you brush your teeth, so that you can look at the thing that you want for yourself and who you're going to become every day, and read it to yourself every time you see it.
Love it. Ladies, lipstick and eyeliner can substitute for this as well on your mirror.
Amen. I support that. Although it's not good for your budget, because then you're going to have to get some more lipstick and eyeliner. Just
That's
saying.
a fact. Or dry erase markers. That's what I do. But I mean, you guys, don't let what Eric just said be lost on you. I know we've talked a lot about how important self-talk is. And it's paramount in any endeavor, not only in your ability to negotiate for a higher salary, but essentially all the non-negotiables that you have in your life, your relationships, any of your interpersonal relationships. It's paramount. And I know for me personally, when I was grappling with this specific issue of negotiating a higher salary, I didn't have a lot of people who were self-affirming around me. And I was in a profession where I was young, I was a female, and it just was not something that was resounding. So I had to reprogram myself so that I didn't feel scared when I walked into a room and I put in front of the people that I was talking to and negotiating with exactly what I was looking for, because I knew that I had done the research and that I was prepared for that. So it's self-talk is important in every aspect of your life, but specifically in this one, because I feel like there's going to be a lot of opportunities when you're having conversations like this where you feel like you're being gaslit by everyone around you, and you have to be the rock that you're looking for in someone else.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
The other practical thing I would say too is, if this is a struggle for you, okay, create your own alter ego and name them. Right? I have an alter ego. Most people won't know this about me, so I'll share it here. Is like, when I started out professionally, I was nervous and scared about everything. So I had to create a new identity for myself. Like, there's work Eric or business Eric, and work Eric and business Eric operate a certain way. Now, personal Eric that's not working or whatever could be totally different, right? He could be more shy and soft-spoken and introverted, but work Eric was this different person. He was introverted. He talked to people. He had courage. He was bold. He took action. Like this, give yourself somebody else. It doesn't have to be you, right? Become somebody else mentally in your brain as you work on these other things to where you can merge the two of these folks together. Create an alter ego for yourself so that you can put yourself into that role mentally, because we all have challenges that we get stuck with being who we are, because you became who you are over a series of years. So if you're sitting here listening to this and you're 25, 35, or 45, it took you a long time to become whoever you are. You may have gotten trapped along the way. There may have been some plateaus, but you can create a whole new version of yourself at any point in your life just by making a decision.
I love it.
You
I
really
can't wait to
can,
start
yeah.
working on my alter ego, y'all.
I know. I thought we were going to get like a spicy name for alter ego Eric.
We don't know.
Personal Eric and business Eric? Or you can't disclose it?
He has many spicy names, okay? We got to keep this PG here, okay?
We might have to have another glass of wine to get that one out of him.
But,
okay. Go ahead, Michelle.
So let's go in. Oh, no, I was going to say, so actually a side story here I'll share. So post-it theory actually does work. And actually early on in my career when I started working with Eric, where I was sitting down for, I believe it was my Series 65. And, we were talking one day and he was like, do you think, you're prepared for it? And I was like, I don't know. I was creating like a lot of self-doubt for myself. So he was like, all right, I want you to take out a post-it note right now and write down, the score that you want. So I wrote down 85 and he was like, okay, I want you to multiply that post-it note and put it everywhere in your house. So when you wake up, that's what you're seeing. When you go to sleep, that's the number you're seeing. So it turns out I did pass the test and now my nickname is 85. So
listen, if you're listening up, ladies, post-it note your way to success. It doesn't have to be fancy.
And there's something really permanent about writing something down. Like maybe that makes me old school, but it's not the same when you're typing it, y'all. If you write it down, it's ingrained. Like it's the future.
Yeah. It is, yes. Okay. So Eric, next question for you. Can you share, your insights on why salary negotiation is an essential skill for professionals, regardless of their industry or role?
Let me break it down for everybody who's listening. The two most important factors to your financial success are what is your starting salary when you come into the workplace, period, and your credit score. Okay, great. We're not going to talk about your credit score, but your salary is going to be the number one thing wherever you go that is going to affect the level of altitude that your salary goes to. Because think about it. Anybody who's listening here has been in the workplace, they give you a pay raise. Somebody comes to you, if you're making a little bit of money and they're like, hey, Michelle, hey, Jenny, we gave you a 20% bump this year, not the normal 3 to 5% that we give every, low achiever here in this organization. And they say it to you all proud. We gave you 20%, 30% bump. And you're like, 20% of 50 grand is not that big a number compared to 20% of 100 grand or 200 grand. That's a way more significant. So it is uber important that you start out with your job professionally getting the highest dollar value that you possibly can. And here's what it starts out with. We already talked about it. You need to value you. So as you're thinking about salary negotiations, right? There's a couple of things that you need to do. Do your homework. So before you join any company, do your homework. Stephen Covey wrote a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, okay? The most important thing is to start with the end in the mind. What do you want for yourself? Okay, and think about a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, where do you want to go? And how does the job that you're looking to get fit into the longer term vision? So start with the end in mind. Do your homework. And here's what I mean by doing your homework. A lot of people think, okay, great. I went onto the company's website and I read what the company was about and their history and their founding and this, that, and the other and yada, yada. Okay, great. That's table stakes. You should do that. That's basics, okay? What you really should focus on is what are the key results that the company that you're potentially joining from a salary standpoint is going to want you to achieve. You see, here's where the fallacy that most people have. Most people think, I go to a job and they pay me a salary and I do work. Great. And they think that's the economy. It's a trade-off between those two. No, people, we are in the results economy. People who get results get paid. And you need to understand that when you go into a job, it's starting with the end in mind, understanding what results the company wants from you and how that leads into how you're going to get compensated. Then you need to be bold. Okay. You got to believe in you. If you ain't sold on you, why should I hire you? If I hire you on the other end, this is what the question you need to be prepared to ask. If I hire you, what impact will you have on our organization 12 months from now, 2 years from now? What contribution will you bring to the organization? How will you be an and versus an or? Okay. So you also need to have etiquette. Here's what I mean by etiquette. Don't send an email. If you can get somebody's information, send them a handwritten note. Okay. Also, most important thing, you got to be willing to walk away. Here's what I mean by that. If anybody's bought in a car here, the number one strategy to getting a good deal on a car is you got to be able to get up and walk the hell out of the dealership when the price ain't right. You got to treat yourself the same way. This is the biggest financial determinant to your long-term success of how much money you're going to make as a human ATM is what is your starting salary. You better be willing to walk off of the table if it doesn't align with or is not taking you towards the trajectory of that you want to go with your life and your career and what you want for yourself financially.
Okay, love it. I have a question for you that is a little bit more, I guess, tactical, if you will, because I think women definitely operate in that zone. They want to feel prepared when they walk into a room. And they're obviously going to be nervous, especially if they're making a large ask. So what is your philosophy surrounding, I know there's advice everywhere surrounding this. I feel like there's people that are like, you have to hedge. So you give them a range, you give them a high, you give them a low. In terms of actually having the conversation with somebody, what have you seen that is most successful for people that are actually trying to, get that dollar amount?
So we're talking about while you're working at a company, we're working about before you walk through the door.
So let's start, and I know that there's different phases that we're going to jump into, but let's say you really enjoy the company that you work at, but you feel that you've reached a point where you deserve more money for the activities that you're already partaking in, or maybe you even want a promotion as well, and you want to take on more, and you feel like you're the right person for that job.
Love that. First off, great. I love this example. But it all starts with wanting more for yourself or better. I'm going to say some things here that are controversial. Okay. There's a lot of things going on right now talking about quiet quitting and people doing less and skating by in their job. I'm going to say it to you, everybody listening right now. If you want more, you have to become more and you have to get more and better results. I'm going to say it again. If you want more, you have to become more. You may have to do more. You may have to get better results. Okay. So the first thing that you would want to do is you need to go in there with the right tactic. When you're sitting down, you would want to go to your boss and sit down. And before you go to your boss, compile a list of all of the things that you have done that have positively impacted the organization. Okay. For those of you listening now, you should be doing this all along the way. Don't wait until right before you want to go do this ask to think that your brain is going to remember every little idiosyncrasy and detail of things that you've done. Because you know what? Women, by and large, are phenomenal team players, and they focus more on we than I. And I'm telling you, this is the point in life where you need to be selfish. You need to think about your I contribution. Okay? There may not be an I in team, but there's an I in win, and you're trying to win here by getting a better deal for yourself. So you need to think about I and take some time to synthesize some of the things that you've done to contribute to the company. You need to outline how you've been loyal. You need to outline how you've been a team player. You need to outline how you've solved problems for your boss, okay? Once you do all this, you need to decide what it is that you want for yourself. So do some homework. Go look at Go look at what you think you should be paid and what the level of responsibilities are. It's super important that you check your attitude at the door. Okay, here's what I mean by that. If you go in and you start looking, you start realizing that you're being underpaid, it could very, very, very much be upsetting to you and make you mad, piss you off. Okay, totally get it. I have been there before. You need to leave that attitude behind, because if you bring that sort of energy into a room, it becomes a what's the word, a hostage negotiation, versus a collaboration.
Right.
You need to put your boss in a position to say yes. So what you do is you approach your boss and say, hey, I've really been thinking a lot about my role within the organization. I'm super excited. I see this, I've seen a lot of career growth. I've been able to accomplish yada, 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 yada. As I was sitting down and thinking about my future and who I want to become and how I want to become better, I really want X. I would really like to have X salary. Can you help me figure out what I need to do to get to this level, given the things that I've done and where I want to do going forward? And here's what the answers are going to be: 100%, or, oh, I can give that to you right now. You may be surprised. If you don't ask, the answer is always going to be no. I could give that to you right now. Or, here are the things that I need you to do. And when you do these things and we agree upon them, we'll 100% match your salary up to that. So it's super important that, number one, you have a plan. Number two, you do some self-reflection. Number three, that you come in with the right frame of mind. That, number one, you want to be a team player. Number two, you want to contribute. Number three, you want to grow. Don't ever come at it from a point of you're angry because you realize that you're significantly behind pay or you're not where you want to be. That sort of energy doesn't bode well for anybody. And that's kind of my thought process on that.
Okay, love it. A couple things that I want to resonate with you guys from what he just said. First and foremost, you are the only person that's going to advocate for yourself. And you can't have expectations that someone else is going to do that for you. And I think sometimes we grow up in a world in our mind where we absolutely expect that. So you have to reframe that, and you have to put yourself in a position where you're thinking about that and where you are advocating for yourself. There's a way to do it respectfully. And just make sure that you're in alignment with that, because at the end of the day, if you want to get something, you're going to be measured against who you are as a person and how you show up. So that's something that I definitely want you to take away from that. And then also just make sure that whenever you're thinking about, salaries from jump, that you're really, really being cognizant about what you are doing on a day in and day out basis and the value that you're bringing. We're not owed something simply from being there. And you might be an amazing asset to the company that you're working with, but if you're not able to put that into words and to quantify that, then the person that you're talking to likely is overseeing a ton of other people, and they may really like you and they really may want to see you be successful. But you have to jog their memory, right? Because they've got a million other things that are going on in their brain. Okay. And this is something that, we as humans have the tendency to be a little bit self-absorbed. So we forget that not everybody is thinking about us at all times. So you have to be an advocate with regard to that. And that's something that Eric taught me whenever I had those initial conversations with the boss that I was talking about, where I wanted to double my salary because I realized that I was underpaid and that there was the roles and responsibilities that I had taken on were more than what were initially agreed upon. And Eric, I want to dive into kind of the next phase of salary negotiation, which is wanting to leave the company. But before we do that, I think that one of the things that you have to offer that is one of your amazing skill sets is you have a lot of people skills, right? So what if somebody wants to stay at the company? They're very happy there. And they start to engage in this conversation, and either the person they're talking to, doesn't have the best people skills, or maybe they just didn't go about it the right way. They kind of stepped in it, and they're met with some pushback. What do you think are, some tips that you can give to people that kind of find themselves in that situation? And like you said before, always have the ability to walk away, but they really do, enjoy this company. They have a vision with the company. They want to stay with the company.
So number one, you talked about, advocating for yourself, you have to be tenacious. Just because you have one conversation with somebody doesn't mean you back off. You need to come back and regroup, right? Self-reflect after you had that conversation. Hey, what went well? What didn't go well? And because what happens is as you start getting in this conversation, it could be uncomfortable for you mentally or psychologically. You may get nervous, and so everybody handles these situations differently. You may speed up fast, you may forget to say things you're going to say, etc. And so take a second to reflect on how the conversation went, what you think went well, and regroup, and then go back and reapproach the conversation if it didn't go the way that you wanted to, and basically follow up with something like, hey, I've had some time to reflect since we last spoke, and here are some things that I wanted to share with you, because now there's a lot of fear when you're initially springing it out, right? This is an uncomfortable conversation, right? Because you're emotionally invested in the outcome, which is, there's the money side of it, which we're talking about today, but even more so than that, there's the emotional validation that you feel valued as an employee or as a professional, right? The money is one piece. There's the emotional validation, and there's this fear that when you go in that somebody's going to tell you no. And no, you need to remove the word no being negative to you, and you need to play this game that I've always played with myself in my head that I'm going to share with you guys, called no means not yet. So no means not yet. So here's what that means is, if you told me no, well then good, I'm going to go reapproach it differently. I'm going to change my ask. I'm going to say things differently. I'm going to see if there's other things that I can bring to the table that I can get you to say yes towards. Can you sit down and help me map out a plan to get more money? Yes. Do you think it's possible to do in 6 to 9 months? Yes. When can we sit down and do it? Can we do it on Tuesday or Wednesday next week? Yes. There's a whole psychological. You need to get somebody to start saying yes, moving towards your direction, so that then you're in a situation where you have somebody invested that can help you grow. So remember, no means not yet, and separate the emotion that you're going to have with wanting something and potentially somebody saying no with you believe in you. And just because you knocked on the door once doesn't mean if you go back the second, third, fourth time. There's a concept in sale, right? Which you're asking for money, you are selling yourself. Okay. We are all in sales. We are selling ourselves. If we're out there dating people, we're selling ourselves. If we're trying to make friends, we're selling ourselves every second of the day. And anybody that tells you otherwise is full of it. So you better get really good at selling. Okay. So the reality of it is separate yourself, sell yourself, be sold, and don't give up.
Love it.
Those are really awesome tips, because I know a lot of people, once they hear that word no, kind of like shuts them down, and that's it. They don't want to talk about it, and they'll just be like, okay, and then that's damaging to their self-worth and confidence. And then even in the future, they don't even want to bring it up anymore.
Here's the thing too, instead of getting mad, get curious. Why is it no? What is it? Right? Because maybe they weren't telling you no to the whole thing. Maybe they just said no, but there was parts of it that were a yes. Get curious and ask questions.
Absolutely.
Why? Yeah. Tell me more. Is there anything specific that you can tell me about this? Is the timing not right? I mean, here's the reality, especially right now. There's a lot of economic challenges going on right now in our country. So there may be things going on in your company that you're not aware of. You may be your timing could be off, and if you're truly invested in the company, you may have to be okay with that. The company may be downsizing right now, and it may be a situation where if you value the company that you're at, you may have to stay there, and you're going to be lucky that you have your job. So just some context so everybody has a full view of the things.
And I think to piggyback off of what Michelle and Eric were just touching upon is, when somebody tells you no, a couple things. First of all, as Eric mentioned, that doesn't necessarily mean no forever. It's not, no is a complete sentence, but it can mean not yet in this context. And another thing to think about is if you're told no, it's not a personal affront in a lot of cases. So don't take it as such. You have to reframe that in your brain, and get curious, like Eric said, and ask questions about why. Because 9 times out of 10, they're going to be able to give you a reason. And then at that point, you can reframe what it is that you're asking for and put yourself in a position where you can say yes, or she can say yes.
Yep.
Okay. I want to get to the last scenario, which is when you actually do want to leave another company and go to another opportunity. Talk us through, some tactical advice surrounding that and how you would approach that.
All right. Since this is the Empowered Women podcast, and we're talking to you out there, ladies, I've got some advice for you. We've been talking about worth. We've been talking about confidence. We've been talking about mantras. We've been talking about how you treat yourself. Okay. I'm going to say it to you. You are a hot commodity. Okay. I use a lot of dating analogies in business, but you are a hot commodity. You have plenty of dates and everybody wants to date you. You need to view yourself that way in the job market. So this is going to sound weird, but I'm just going to share it with you all. People need to sell you on why you should come to their organization, and you need to do your homework. So when you go into interviews, you need to be confident, and like, we're both interviewing each other here. Like, this has to be a good fit for me. This has to be a good fit for you. And you have to come with the mindset that you have options. Okay. And if you don't have options, you need to go get some more. Okay. Spend some money. You may need to go out and hire somebody to help you resume write. You may need to talk to your friends as brilliant as communications and negotiations and role play some scenarios of potential questions that somebody might ask you on an interview so that you can be sharp and you can be ready. Okay. So first and foremost, you need to act like you're a hot commodity. Number 2, you need to go big or go home. Okay. This is your opportunity to get maximum dollars. Okay. So we talked about there's the most important thing for financial success is the salary that you start with. But when you jump, you need to make it a big jump, right? Because then that's going to be the new benchmark. Everything is going to be pegged on what you're at. So when you're going to make this change, it needs to be for more money. And here's the thing, and this is anecdotal, but I know I've talked to a lot of women about this. Whatever the job is you're looking for, you need to level up. Okay? The one mistake that I see that I've heard from women that they make is they go and they look at a job description and they maybe have 2 or 3 elements out of, let's call it the 10-point job description that's out there. They say, well, I only got 2 out of 10 here. I'm not going to apply. Their male counterparts will be like, cool, 2 out of 10. I can figure out the other 8 out of 10. So this comes down to knowing your worth and being bold. Changing companies and potentially moving to another job is a huge opportunity for you to grow and for you to push yourself professionally so that you can become more, so that you can get paid more.
And I think just to kind of piggyback off of what you're saying, Eric, so many times, especially as women, we put ourselves in a position where we feel like these moves that we make or these leaps that we make have to be incremental. And while that may be true, they can be extremely large leaps. I've done that in my career where I've taken jobs where I have felt woefully unqualified. And then I get into the job and I realize everybody feels that way when they start something new and big and massive. And why shouldn't you put yourself in a position to be a contender for that? Because it's likely that you're going to perform. So thank you, Eric. I really appreciate all the insight that you're able to provide. I think you gave such good advice, guys. Make sure that you were taking notes on this. It is going to live on YouTube. So you can go back to it and reference it. If you have any questions about any of the tactics, please feel free to reach out to us. I'm sure Eric will be happy to help out. And we appreciate you guys taking the time to join us today. Next week, we're going to talk about how to romanticize your life.
Ooh.
Or your everyday activities, life activities, however you say it.
Great. Thank you again, Eric.
Ladies.
And I'm sure you'll see Eric again on this podcast. He has a wealth of knowledge about all the tips we want to share with you guys. So thanks again,
Absolutely.
Eric, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their Wine Wednesday, and we'll see you all next week.
See y'all next week. Thanks, Eric.